Psychotherapy, organized by the Department of English, Nehru Memorial College, in association with ACEM Foundation India. So, there is a simple path to reach the God Almighty. Silence is prayer, prayer is faith. Faith is love, love is service. The fruit of service is peace, that is the gift to the mankind from the Lord. Let us seek the blessings of the Lord Almighty by standing up 2 minutes silent prayer.
We want a world where everything is welcome, everything is valid, everything is acknowledged, embraced and accepted. Now, it's my bound duty to welcome our respected principal, Dr. A.R. Pon Peresami sir, to welcome the gathering.
Good afternoon to everyone gathered here. Respected President, Chief Guest of the day, Dr. Hare Holland and Mr. Jayraj, Mrs. Kalpana and Mr. Balakrishnan, Vice Principal, Coordinator of Self-Finance, Controller of Examination, all Deans, Placement Officer, Head of the Departments, Organizer, Madam Lakshmi Madam, all Head of the Departments, my dear colleagues, once again, good afternoon to everyone. I welcome you all to this faculty development program on counseling and psychotherapy. First of all, I would like to welcome our college committee president, Sri Pon Balasubramanian, who has been a constant source of inspiration. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
It is my great pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our chief guest, Professor Emeritus Dr. Hare Holland, psychologist at NTNU, Norway. Dr. Hare Holland is renowned psychologist and he is also the founder of ACEM Meditation International. He is here to discuss how to motivate the students. I welcome you, sir. I extend my hearty welcome to Sri Jayraj, Mrs. Kalpana and Mr. Balakrishnan of ACM India. Next I welcome you our Vice Principal, Controller of Examination, Deans, Head of the Department, all the staff members for this FTP. Once again, welcome you all. Thank you one and all.
Chief guest for this workshop, Professor Emeritus Dr. R.A. Holland and his team, Mr. Jayraj, Madam Kalpana, and Mr. Balakrishnan of ACEM India, Principal, Deans, Heads of the departments and my dear staff members. I am really happy that ACEM India is trying to motivate and promote meditation of emptiness, which is a different concept in meditation. I'm sure we need to have our mental health seasoned properly so that we can handle the students, different students at different occasions. You know, some are very vociferous, some are naughty. They do all sorts of activities, which as a faculty member we need to handle hundreds of them at a time. So I'm sure we need to practice this meditation to give us a calmness and to handle different situations arising on our day-to-day life, besides our personal life. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. R.A. Holland for visiting this campus again and again and helping us to do the meditation in a better way. I also take this opportunity to request the organizers to form a meditation club and practice this regularly and encourage our faculty members to meet at least once in a week and practice this meditation. Besides encouraging and introducing it to the students also at a later stage. I once again thank everyone from ACEM India for having accompanied Dr. R.A. Holland. Let us practice and benefit out of it. Thank you. Wish you all the best.
It's time to honor our chief guests. May I request our Honorable President, Engineer Sri Pon Balasubramaniam Sir, to adorn a shawl to our today's chief guest, Professor Emeritus Dr. R.A. Holland, Psychiatrist, Department of Neuroscience, Norwegian University of Science and Technology, Norway. I invite our beloved principal, Dr. A.R. Pon Periyasamy Sir, to adorn a shawl to Mr. Jayaraj, the coordinator of ACEM, Southeast Asia. I invite Dr. A.R. Pon Periyasamy, Principal NMC Sir, to adorn a shawl to Mr. Balakrishnan Sir, the coordinator of ACEM, Tamil Nadu. I invite Dr. Manimeghali Ma'am, Head Department of Economics, to adorn a shawl to Mrs. Kalpana Jayaraj Ma'am. It's a short introduction about today's chief guest. Dr. R.A. Holland is an internationally recognized disaster expert and expert on traumatic stress and also he is a recognized survivor helper, researcher and lecturer in the field of traumatic stress. He is a psychiatrist and a clinical psychologist with psychotherapeutic orientation. He is a full-time tenured professor of behavioral medicine at the Faculty of Medicine, Norwegian University of Science and Technology, Norway. Dr. R.A. Holland founded ACEM in 1966 when he was a student. He has been a pivotal person in the development of ACEM meditation and the psychology of meditation. He is the head of ACEM International. In 1968, he founded the first yoga school in Norway, ACEM School of Yoga. From 2005 to 2009, he was Vice Dean and Dean of Medical Education at the Faculty of Medicine, Norwegian University of Science and Technology. He was quoted in the Time magazine as a disaster expert in relation to the nuclear disaster in Chernobyl. He has been on the editorial board of the Journal of Traumatic Stress for 6 years. His areas of research are traumatic stress, medical education and group processes. He is involved in meditation, research and has published several books and articles on meditation. He has also studied Sanskrit. During Assam's first years, he spent some time in India comparing and exploring different meditative traditions. Dr. A.R. Holland has been training the police, fire squads, Scandinavian Airlines, etc. and he has helped these institutions to establish systems for handling extreme events. He was called to by the Scandinavian embassies in Japan after the earthquake in Kobe. Moreover, he was involved in NYC in the aftermath of 11th September 2001. Also, he was in Thailand during 2004 to 2005, after the strike of tsunami, to aid disaster survivors and to advise the national squads and the Norwegian embassy in their pursuits. He has been a guest lecturer on traumatic stress and medical education outside of Scandinavia in England, Australia, Japan, Taiwan, and at various universities in the US. We are grateful to the Chief Guest for accepting our invitation and for the continuous support of him to our NMC.
A man who does value himself can value anything or anyone. Our most valuable, highly esteemed, honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Ray Holland, we requested you to present his keynote address on counseling and psychotherapy.
Can you hear me? So we are ready to start finally. Some technological issues at the beginning. Well, this is mostly a seminar. It says workshop there, but it's mostly a seminar in a lecture form about counseling, which is different from meditation. Meditation is the way of dealing with issues you to yourself, while counseling is what you do in relationship to another person. So this is a relationship-based way of helping, for instance, students or colleagues. And counseling, I've understood, is expected by every academic institution in Tamil Nadu. There should be some knowledge of counseling so that university teachers, faculty members can counsel students to their benefit. So we will go over the issue of counseling and make you understand at least the basic concepts of what it is all about. So, to whom can you use counseling? To whom can you talk to make a difference? Well, counseling is related to people who have emotional or existential problems. So it's a person in problems who is having a burden, is worried, or having some major concerns. When things in life hurt psychologically, that's when you can give counseling. When the mind of the person is troubled by issues related to coping with life challenges, that's when you can give counseling. So it's problems within the normal range. It's not, counseling is not for the psychotic person, it's not for people with major clinical problems. It's for people, students, colleagues, friends who have problems in the normal range of life challenges. Okay, so then we know the goal. Okay, what is it not? What is counseling or psychotherapy not? It's not to admonish somebody, to tell them what to do and what not to do. It's not exactly to mentor. It's not to advise. It's not to promise success or resolution. And definitely it's not like the police to interrogate. It is supposed to be a supportive facilitation of interpersonal exchange with somebody seeking help. So notice the last part. The person who is to be counseled is a person who asks for help, or directly or indirectly. So mentoring, which is a slightly different thing, is to support somebody in reaching their academic goals, in social integration, etc., in career development, to resolve things. So mentoring may involve advice, suggestions, what to read, whom to talk to, whom to contact, how to acquire knowledge, skills, etc. So mentor is given by a senior person Thank you. By a senior person in the field, by somebody who is less experienced, to achieve academic goals, while counseling was to solve emotional problems, concerns, troubles, things that hurt. Not all students need counseling, but some students do from time to time. It can be a trivial issue seen from your side, but it can also be a major problem also seen by you. So whom to help with counseling? Well, I've already made this point. The person must be an obvious help seeker, directly or indirectly. He asks for an opportunity, may I talk to you a little bit? It might be that the person wants to share something, relate something that bothers or hurts the person. Directly, when she comes to you and asks for your time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes or whatever. Indirectly, when somebody doesn't ask you, but you see that they linger a little bit in the door, or they look at you in ways that you understand here there is something cooking underneath. So whenever you have these hints, you should be helpful and say, is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything we can talk about? Or something like that. If you have the time, if you find that you are in the situation that you can do that. So, it should be lingering, help. Seeking eye contact. It depends on the context, of course. To be able to do counseling in a successful way, you need something that we in the therapeutic science call a therapeutic alliance. A therapeutic alliance or a therapeutic relationship. And the key word here is trust. The person to whom you are to give counseling must have some degree of trust in you. Sometimes the trust might not be there at the beginning, but you will have to develop that trust so that trust can deepen. We can talk about relationships as symmetric and asymmetric. A symmetric relationship is like that. An asymmetric relationship is like that. Somebody is above, somebody is below. A teacher is having an asymmetric relationship to the student. When it comes to counseling, the nature of the exchange should, in its quality, even though the roles are never always asymmetric, the role should be fairly symmetrical, so that both have a sort of even share in the exchange that takes place. So this is the therapeutic alliance as a kind of democratic relationship, in the sense that there are two fairly equal partners in standing and value, and both are free to contribute to what goes on between them. So, for a therapeutic alliance to work, there has to be some kind of trust, there has to be a kind of willingness of the other, a permission given to you, and the relationship should be fairly neutral when you talk. That is some relationship requirements for a therapeutic alliance. Goals for counseling and psychotherapy should be to facilitate the person in finding his own ways of resolving challenges and problems. So it's not that you tell the person you should do this and that. You rather talk to the person, to the student, in ways that he or she finds out from himself, herself. I can do this and that. So you do that not with a distance, but with a certain closeness, and you do it with a supportive, interested, positive attitude. So counseling and psychotherapy is built on the assumption that there is a value in activating each person's own resources, and thereby make this person able to utilize his own resources and thereby create independence and not foster dependence. There are ways of helping others that fosters dependence. You tell the person what to do, what not to do, and you direct the person, and he has to come back to and ask you all the time, what should I do now, what should I do that? This is a way of rather not create that kind of a relationship, but rather foster independence. Okay, so I've already said there are two roles in this exchange. It's the help seeker and it's the counselor, which should be you, the faculty member. And who is to speak the most? Well, in good counseling, the counselor should speak the least. And that can be very hard for some faculty members because they're used to speak the most. But in a counseling setting, the counselor input should be only 15 to 20% of the time, and it should not exceed 40% of the time. That means that the person that you are counseling should be encouraged to speak the most, because it's that person that you are going to help, and not by you telling, but by rather facilitating, helping the other person. So the person should be encouraged to express his problems, his worries, his fears, distress, despair, thoughts, ideas, or whatever, in his or her own words. And that is particularly important in a democratic relationship, in a therapeutic alliance, that the person should be accepted in using his own words, and you should pick up that person's words and use them as we will demonstrate as we go along. So the expertise here in counseling is to make the person work, and work means makes the person talk. And freely, more and more freely, be able to express his or her inner world, and gradually, with your support and listening, gain insight into how to resolve all the problems or parts of the problems, at least be able to cope with his or her reality in a better way. There are two basic components in this, and at first sight they may look very obvious, but when we go deeper into it, it isn't all that obvious. The most important part is listening. The other part is responding. Listening was to be done all the time, 100% of the time. Responding should be preferably 15 to 20% of the time, as we have already mentioned. The listening is not just to listen to hear the sound of the voice of the person talking. Listening means to listen in such a way that you understand the person, what he or she is conveying overtly and even covertly, emotionally and cognitively. So by listening, you will gradually know how to respond. And to respond is to focus on what will stimulate this person to go on and say more, to elaborate his subject. That is, to clarify his problems, foster discharge of emotion, and lead to cognitive restructuring, etc., to make the person able to see his situation in a new light. So we'll go deeper into this. First listening, and then into responding. Why listen? Well, listening is the most important part. It is to be carried out all the time. You shouldn't look out of the window, you shouldn't talk to them on the phone or anything. You should have your attention directed towards the student. It's the main role to understand the person you're talking with. And to be listened to is therapeutic in itself. You all know it feels good when somebody has listened to you, listening thoroughly. And that is relieving to be listening to. It feels so good when somebody can listen and give you the time, and sometimes that's all that is needed. Messages from the person who speaks, the one who is the help seeker, the one who is being counseled, will provide you with cues, clues for therapeutic responses in that very moment and even also later. So listen to be able to understand not what is just the surface of things, but also at the depth of what this person is trying to convey. What is it inside this person that hurts? Later, you can use some of these clues to identify relevant topics, psychological topics, emotional and cognitive components of it. Listening means not just to listen to the sound of the other person, but to try to understand, try to see how it is from that person's perspective, to put yourself not in your position, but in that person's position. How is it to be bullied by a roommate in a dormitory? How is it to have a father at home who is drinking and making problems, and you hear on the phone about the problems when you are at college? Things like that. You should listen and understand, what does this feel like for this person, for this boy or this girl or this colleague to have these kinds of problems. So you should listen to what is being said by words. You should listen to how it is being said, and you should listen to what is not being said, and you should also observe any bodily expressions that goes with the message, because sometimes there are things that are not expressed in words that are expressed in the body instead. So we should listen, of course, to what the person conveys, but also to the periphery of the message. And the body language is the periphery, and there will be other things, we will come back to that. So, again, what is said by words? What happens in the room? What can you see when the person talks? What is the current context? And what is the past of this student that might be reflected in what the person is saying now? You should listen with empathy. That means to have the person's perspective. Empathy. Pathos is the Greek word. It means feeling. Sympathy means together, feeling together with this person. Empathy means that you see from inside what that feels like for this person. So it's feeling from within the other person. Okay. center and periphery of a message. Troubled emotions are often expressed in disguised form. They are not, might not be intentionally, but it's due to what they activate. So there may be some cues that you might find in the periphery of the message, or even in the non-verbal, that can give you an idea about what is this about. Now, I will give you some examples from Virginia Satir, a very famous American psychotherapist. This is a modified version of it. You can imagine the dialogue between husband and wife. And the wife says, I want to see the new movie in town. Shall we see it together tomorrow? This is a clear, open wish expressed to the husband. And he can say yes or no or whatever. But it's an open dialogue. But if this lady puts the message in a little more into the periphery, she might say, there is a new movie in town. Yes. So, what? There is a new movie. It's not clearly said that I want to see that movie. Do you want to see it too? So that's a little more hidden, a little disguised. If we go further into disguise, you can see this statement. You do not want to see the new movie, do you? So now she's denying it. You don't want to see it, do you? And then it's even harder for the husband to understand. It depends on how psychologically minded he is. But it might be a little more difficult to understand, oh, she's wanting to see this movie. And now we come back to down to the almost schizophrenic way of communication, where the person is saying, there is sales in a shop next to the movie theater. You have to be very clever and very psychologically minded to be able to understand that this means I want to see the new movie in town. Shall we see it together tomorrow? Right? Well, this is a little entertainment to share this example. But the point is, when you are doing counseling, lots of things are being related to you in this disguised way. And it's your task as a counselor to be able to lift that up so that the dialogue can happen about what this is. Okay? So, centrality and periphery also comes with the bodily expressions. I can give you an example by sitting in this chair and somebody is counseling me and the person is asking, so how can I help? What's your problems? And the person said, well, nothing really. Okay, the words deny it. It's somewhere far down. But you can see that this leg was moving. So some emotionality is expressed this way. Or like that. Or you can see that the chin starts to jump a little. Or the eyes get moist. You get the body language. You see here is something underneath. So that is an indicator. The body language might be sometimes the indicator, or the spoken language can be the indicator of something underneath. There is something you don't understand. Okay. So emotions can be expressed in peripheral ways. We want to make them central so that they are more open. What's troubling you? Well, I have a problem at home. A problem at home. Do you know what problem it is? No. So then you would say, tell me more about that. Well, it's my father. Still you don't know. What is it about your father? Well, he sometimes beats up my mother. And she calls me for support. Oh. Then you know, this student is having his attention more at home than at school. More in the problems in the home than in his homework and in his school lessons. This person is troubled by something outside of campus. Comes in and interferes with learning in campus. Okay. Counseling cannot change the alcoholic behavior of the father when you sit with a student. But it can make the student perhaps be less troubled and deal with his situation in a fairly more direct way. I have some problems at home. Yes. What is that about? Tell me. Well, it's my father. You see, you just get a little bit at a time. So if you don't follow up, you won't get it. Now this is a fairly simple example, but some examples are more convoluted, more difficult, more wrapped up. So bring periphery into the centrality. When it's in the central, you can deal with it, you can process it, you can talk about what it really is, and it feels good for the other to be listened to at that basic level. So that's a major challenge of the counselor. Listen with empathy. Okay, I already said empathy is slightly different from sympathy. Isaac Solomon, one of the founding fathers of modern psychiatry, he defined empathy as being a participant observer. Being participant means being close to the other person. Being observer, being having some distance. You can also see it from outside. So participating and observing means proximity and distance. Trying to understand both the overt and the covert part of the message. Empathy you can practice with a lot of platitudes. Platitudes are statements for all seasons, like, oh, it must be very difficult for you to have lost your mother. It must be very difficult for you to have done so and so. My sympathy and all that. Everybody can do that, and it helps. So we can learn a certain amount of platitudes to use for occasions when it comes. But the best empathy comes from introspection, comes from you knowing yourself by, for instance, meditating or by life experiences that have made you understand yourself in a more fundamental way. So if you have a self-understanding and you can turn that out to understand the other, that's the best understanding capacity you can have. That's empathy. It's self inside turned outwards. And in empathy, you transcend barriers. It's a very mature, grown-up understanding, and it's the opposite of egocentricity. To be egocentric, to be self-centered, to be a person who is more or less seeing everything from his or her own perspective. The opposite of that, empathy is to see it from the other person's side. And empathy develops late in life. It comes later than identification and sympathy. Empathy is being lost if you have strong emotions. If you are angry at somebody, you cannot be empathic. If you're very needy, you cannot be empathic. If you have business interests for this person to spend money by talking to you, you won't be empathic. So strong needs or strong interests will ruin your empathic quality. To be empathic is to be sensitive, sympathetic, empathic, all of it at the same time. So, one important way of showing empathy, we have already alluded to, is to use the words of the person talking to you. By using exactly those words that he, she uses, makes the person feel, I'm being listened to, and that feels good. If the person says, I have a problem with my father, then you just repeat, you have a problem with your father. Not as a question, but as a statement. You have a problem with your father. You may add, tell me more about it. Then you show interest. So by using the words of the person, you somehow indicate that you are on the same wavelength. The person feels you can be trusted, you are listening, you're interested, I dare open up. When the person can open up, then he, she will give you more. It will be better for you to understand, it will be better, much better for the person to relate that to you. Give the person undivided attention. Look at the person, not stare at him, but look at the person in a friendly manner and be there for this person all the time. Don't answer the phone, don't let somebody come and knock at the door. Make space, now it's you and me. Only. For this half hour or 20 minutes or 1 hour or whatever, it's us. Everything else is uninteresting. I'm interested in you. I want you to have this freedom to talk and share. So, undivided attention is important. What you also should do is to focus on the underlying message, the emotions where it hurts. Not just listen to the surface, but also what is this person not saying that he perhaps is afraid of telling you or saying to you. So try to listen to that and move towards that. I gave you the example, the simplistic answer. I have a problem at home. Okay, tell me more about it. Well, it's my father. What is it about your father? Well, he quite often beats up my mother, and then she calls me for comfort and support. And I'm her confidant in a way. And I feel I should be home rather than be here at college. And of course we know that wouldn't help this student's future. It would probably not change too much in the home either. So this student should rather have a better life by having an education than being home and holding mother's hand whenever it's needed, even though we can understand that mother also needs support. But that should be done in other ways. Okay, so we should try to understand. So what makes father beat her up? Well, you might see his body language, looking down, You can see that there is a break in the communication line. He drinks. And he drinks and spends so much of our money that it's a problem for all of us. It's conveyed in that sense. Then you get to the depth of it. A drinking father, beating mother, worrying student, ruining his education, the money and time that he has invested in going to college, etc. Here, something is needed to clear the situation so that this person can improve his own life and not be drawn down the drain with the drinking of the father. So our job is to help the person express more and freely or partially or fully what at first was disguised of emotions and thoughts about the matter. We already made this point a few times. You should listen and be silent 80 to 85% of the time, and you should perhaps talk 15 to 20%. That requires some tolerance for silence. I have a problem at home. We start that over and over again. Yes? Long silence. Then you shouldn't jump in and say, yes, come on. Give him her time. Tell me more. Don't rush it. Because when somebody is dealing with shameful, difficult emotions, they need time. And you should allow that time. Unless you do that, you won't be successful. So the pace, the speed of the exchange between the counselor and the help seeker should be slow. If it's a rushed one, it won't work. So, I have a problem at home. Tell me more about it. No. Tell me more about it. Your way of talking, inviting the other to come into it, is essential. It makes a difference. Okay. Well, it's my father. What about your father? That's not the friendly, open, inviting attitude. Well, he does nasty things. Nasty things. You shouldn't ask. You should state. He does nasty things. What does he do? Things like that. Okay. So, always listen to the words, the verbal cues, then listen to the vocal cues. Vocal is the way it's being said. And you should also convey your messages in both verbal and vocal ways. So, if the person says, I'll give you an example, it's perhaps not very relevant to India, but this was an old lady. She came into the hospital with a heart condition, and I was the doctor at the time in the emergency ward, and I wasn't working as a psychiatrist at that moment. I was working in a cardiological ward, and she came in, and she was. And then I'm taking the history, so how old are you? Well, she was 54, and are you married? No, she wasn't married. So do you live alone? No, I live together with my mother. Okay. And you live together with your mother, you have your job as a teacher at school? Yes. Do you have a partner? No. But every Thursday I go dancing, she said. And when she said that, I heard something from the vocal way it was conveyed. I could hear that there was a fight between the mother and the daughter. Mother didn't want the daughter to go and dance every Thursday and have a good time and meet men and other friends and enjoy herself. Mother wanted her to be home and take care of mother all the time. And of course it's nice to take care of one's mother, but it shouldn't ruin the life of the person completely. There should be some open windows from time to time to do something else. And she went dancing. So I could hear that there have been many quarrels between mother and daughter here. That is to listen to the vocal cues. So what is the relationship, or what does mother think about your going dancing? Well, she doesn't like it. Now, what is it that she doesn't like about that? Well, she doesn't want to be alone. She thinks that I should be home with her all the time. Okay, so then you get the periphery into the center. You get it. Then you have interference. Then you have interference, distortions in the communication. I gave you an example a little while ago. When the boy, for instance, talks about his father who is beating mother and all that, and then you ask, well, what makes him do that? And then suddenly there is a complete change in the exchange. There is a distortion in the communication. So somebody starts to stammer, or it can be like this lady, I go dancing, or it can be that speech is being slurred, or there can be a sudden direction change of the gaze from looking at you and looking in an ordinary way, suddenly the person starts to look down or out of the window, or there can be a slip of tongue, a Freudian slip, or there can be misunderstandings. I will say something about responding, and then I will discuss with you some aspects. Sorry. Some aspects of the contract between you and the student that you're counseling. Responding can be of two kinds. First is collecting facts. Thank you. Collecting facts, it's the easiest and most used form of sharing with somebody. It's preferably done initially in the exchange. The second is the process mode. And the process mode is where the counseling of dealing with emotion goes on. And the counseling part requires training and addresses emotional and cognitive maladaptive states. So the psychotherapy and the counseling is mostly carried on in process mode. But this is also an important part. We want the student or the help seeker to elaborate, but sometimes a person diselaborates. And what does that mean? Well, it means that he repeats himself without adding anything new. There is a problem at home. Okay, tell me more about it. What else can I say? They don't add anything. Or no, forget about it, there is no problem. That is diselaboration. When a person is diselaborating, you cannot help the person on that track. Then you have to change track. You can knock at the door once, 2 times, perhaps 3 times, And if the person continues to diselaborate, then drop it. So, there is a problem at home. Okay, tell me more about it. No, there is nothing. Well, you said, that's the second time, you said there was a problem at home. Yeah, but everybody is having problems, so mine is not different from anybody else. Okay, if I try it the third time, I would say something like this. Well, I got the idea that there is something, and it might be that you're trying to hide something. If that doesn't open up the third time, then leave it. Don't knock at the door the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, seventh time, because that just builds up resistance in the person, and you're likely to lose the therapeutic alliance completely. Okay. Responding. How? Well, your response is a verbal response. Your verbal response should also have a vocal quality to it. And you should always focus towards the most emotional part of the statement of the person. That means, if the person says, I have a problem at home, what is the most emotional part of those words? Problems. Problems at home. So repeat the most emotional thing, give it back to the person. And if there is an ambiguous statement, try to ask so that what is implicit in it becomes explicit. What do you mean? I don't quite get you. I don't quite understand. What do you mean to say? So you try to make the person more explicit by using your own, not really understanding. Don't try to pretend that you understand something that you don't understand. Just give it back to the person. I don't get you. What do you mean? What is this about? Say more. Explain this in a different way. Aim of the response is, of course, as we have said time and again, to make the person speak more about his topics in a more direct and open way. And the counselor's statement should, and note this, should always be short and very clear. So instead of saying something lengthily, you should say something very focused, very short, very brief, boom, back. And you might need to think before you speak. Think of a formulation that captures what is the essence of what this person has been saying, captures the essence of it, and that should be in your response. So your response should be short and clear. I repeat, short and clear. And after you've said it, you must be quiet and wait for the response. It can be a long wait, it can be a short wait, it doesn't matter, you wait. Because when you have that silence, the person is turning inwards and connecting his thoughts to his emotions and come out with a response that is in his own words, that reflects his own state of mind. Okay, so some important messages here. Always make the person elaborate, be short and clear, and be quiet, waiting for the response. Okay. In the beginning of an exchange, your responses are limited to the last single statement only. Later on, when you've been talking for a while, you go to higher order responses, which are topic-oriented responses. That's a little more difficult to understand. So what is a topic? A topic is a psychological common denominator reflected over several statements, expressions of emotions or ideas revolving around the same issue. So, whenever something is mentioned twice, 3 times, 4 times, either by words or by similar topics, whatever comes back again and again is an indicator that there is something underneath that you should attend to. Freud was expressing this in his ways by saying, return of the repressed. What is repressed will always make it come back. In the old Sanskrit literature, it was very important that they should never commit what is called Puthanampatti. That is to say the same thing twice. Because an enlightened person is always new, is always saying new things, is never repeating himself. So Puthanampatti. So when you read the Sanskrit text and the commentaries to the Sanskrit text, it's sometimes very difficult to understand what they mean because they try not to commit this Puthanampatti. So they had the same ideas back then, that repeating oneself was a sign of something uncompleted. Okay. So, reiterated ways of perceiving or interpreting or saying things is an indication that there is something underneath that you should aim for. So the higher order response is to work on the topic, on this common denominator. We will just mention that and not go into details at this point. What gives a person who talks to you in counseling relief? Well, strongest is the catharsis. It means, it's a Greek word, it means purification. But what it practically means, it's the person is crying and letting out her emotions. Catharsis is outburst of emotions. Otherwise, cognitive identification, the person starts to see a pattern in his own behavior. That's very helpful. And insights is even higher when you see connections between self-understanding and understanding of the problem. So an adequate dialogue brings this topic into the exchange. Okay. 2 modes of responding. The first one, information mode. The second, the process mode. We already alluded to these. Information mode, you have 2 kinds of questions. Specific questions and orienting questions. We'll see what that means. Specific questions are also called yes-no questions. They give you specific answers. Did you get up at 7 this morning? Yes. It's a specific piece of information. Have you been to Africa? No. A specific piece of information. So these are fact-oriented, yes-no question. They should not be used for emotional issues, but for factual information, and they clarify facts. So it's an important part of history taking to get an overview of the problem. it implies a kind of suggestion, but you should avoid leading questions in it. Orienting questions are questions regarding time. When did the problem start? When did you get up this morning? When do you have to be at the bus stop? Location, place. Where do you feel pain? Or where in the world were you when this happened? And procedures. How do you do this? How do I get there? How do I get to the bus station? Or frequency. How many times do you get up in the night to go to the toilet? Or amounts. How much did you puke? Or how much money did you lose? Or how much this and how much that? How much blood poured out? I was teaching at the medical school, so some of my examples are medical. Okay, probing further. What is the nature of the pain you have? And the context. In what situations will this happen? So these are orienting questions, giving information about time, location, procedures, frequencies, amounts, and context, and more. But these are the most important ones. Okay, by using these two, the how and what questions about time, location, etc., and using the yes-no questions, you can get as much information as you need. So 60% of a medical exchange with a patient happens, 60 to 80% happens by using these categories. When you go over to the counseling part, then you use process-oriented questions. Oh, I went the wrong way. So, but before that, we will just say a few things about when do you use the information mode. Well, it's when you cover the social template. How old are you? Gender, you generally don't need to ask. Social status, are you married? For students, that's usually only one answer. Do you have children? Are you at work? What is your background in family? Etc. And then you can ask even further if it's necessary. Income, financial situation, is there any member in the family who's deceased or disabled, etc. And this kind of a social template is usually necessary to have a background information of the person you're talking to. So, facts about the problem and its context. And what does the problem involve? Is it a problem with other persons? Or is it a problem with a certain task? Or is it a problem with resources, money, time, those kinds? When did the problem start? How long has it lasted? How has it developed since its beginning till now? Things like that. Those are orientation specific question that you use to get this kind of information. Then we will focus on statements in the process mode. Process modes are related to domains, and these domains you should have an idea about. They're here. Problems in a relationship. That's something you deal with in process mode. Or when a person is in an strong emotional state, having anxiety, being fearful, having worries, being sad, not just for the last half hour, but for several consecutive days. Somatization, which means having problems in the body that are psychological. And problems in the body that are psychological, they are usually in the mid-axis of the body. So let's say headache, stiff jaw, lump in the throat, feeling congestion in the chest, or stomach pain. Those are the most typical somatization problems. Or acting out. Acting out means instead of having a problem, you throw something, you scream, you kick, you fight, you bang the door, you break something. That's a way of expressing emotions which is not as mature in grown-ups. In youngsters, it's what you expect. But in grown-ups, you expect acting out to be a rare phenomenon. But it isn't. So then you might have traumatic experiences, a car crash, an accident, a disaster, somebody assaulted you, somebody tried to or did rape you. You have the expectations and you failed, or you have had losses of a person that means something to you, losses of money, losses of property, losses of a family member, losses like that, traumatic experiences, or health events. Somebody in your family died, or met with an accident, casualties, or body issues related to a family member. Or it can be a transition in life, moving from one position to another. Instead of living at home, you suddenly have to live in a dormitory in a university or a college. That's a major transition for some. For many it's okay. For a few it's very difficult. Or it could be that there used to be both the mother and the father in the family, and suddenly one of them dies. And that's a new family situation, that's a transition. So all these domains are for process mode. And finally, the self-psychological issues. We can divide man's issues into two. I have a relationship between me and you. That's the me-you relationships, interpersonal relationships. Then you have the me-me relationship. At times, you don't like yourself. The things you've done, things you've said, things you haven't done, you should have said. The me-me relationship, that you feel bad about yourself. That's also something that can be a subject to counseling in the process mode. So we repeat, relationship to another person, the you-me-you relationship, emotional state due to anxiety, worry, somatization, traumatic experiences, health events, psychosocial transitions, and self-psychological issues. Those are in more detail the specific things for which you use counseling. And what statements do you use? Something called open questions, encouragement, and these three, mostly this one, paraphrasing. We will look at that in detail. So, open questions is a question about how and what. So if it's a relationship, how is your relationship to your mother? How is your relationship to your father? What can you say about your relationship to, etc.? What happened in that car accident? How did it affect you? Or if we go to a health event, how was your father's stroke? How did that affect you? Etc. So these are open-ended questions within those domains we just looked at. Interpersonal, emotional states, how do you feel? Traumatic experience, health events, major psychological transitions, self-psychological issues. So, how questions, what questions related to that? Encouragement, you say, yes, go on. tell me more, important, etc. So, and if a person has an incomplete sentence, there is something about what? About what? What did you want to say? There is something about my father. Okay, so sentence completion is also a kind of encouragement. So utterings, inciting the person to continue. Then you have the paraphrase or reflection. In the reflection, you always repeat what the person said that was most emotional. And you don't say it as a question, I told you already, you say it as a confirmation. I have problems falling asleep. What is the most emotional thing in that sentence? Falling asleep. So you repeat that. That's the paraphrase. I hate to go into the dormitory at night. Hating going into the dormitory. Why? You repeat the most emotional thing. Always focus on the most emotional words in the sentence. Reformulation is to say the same thing, but in different words. And clarifications is to say something short that the person you talk to said with many, many words. Or make something more clear, explicit, that was rather implicit. So from long to short, or from unclear to clear. These are the three descriptive techniques: paraphrasing, reformulation, clarification. But this one is the most functioning one. So it should be easy for you to use, pick up what was emotional in the sentence, and say that back to the person. Then you don't add anything, you just stimulate the person, just as you have on the computer, you click on the icon, and the icon opens up. The person elaborates, you just say the same thing, and the person goes further, elaborates. So, look at this sentence. I have felt quite tense the last 2 weeks. Which word there is the most emotional one? Tense. So in a paraphrase you say tense. Or tense the last 2 weeks. You should always be short. So focus on what it gives most outcome. Tense. Lately, I do not fall asleep for hours after I've gone to bed. Do not fall asleep for hours. And this long silence, and the person feels impelled to say more. I find it hard to concentrate. My thoughts are elsewhere. I keep walking up and down. Here there are several emotional walking up and down, thoughts elsewhere. Concentrate. You can pick one, or you can pick two, or you can pick all three. Hard to concentrate, thoughts elsewhere, you walk up and down. I'm really worried about my father after he met with the traffic accident last week. What is the most emotional word? Worried. Worried about the father. Relationship, emotion and relationship. You're worried about your father. Just leave it. Okay. A roommate is bothering me. It's more than I can handle. Roommate bothers. You can add, of course, an encouragement and say, tell me more if you like. Or you just give the paraphrase. The batteries are out. Okay. So, then I want to say a few words about, thank you. I want to say a few words about the contract. And what is a contract? Well, it's not a written contract, but it's the kind of agreement you make with a student or a colleague who comes to you for problems, or who doesn't come to you, but who you pick up because you see that this person has a problem, and you start to talk. You make a contract, meaning I will give you half an hour now, I'll talk to you next week, and after that, 3 times. And after that, whatever, we will stop. So that you already at the beginning defined an end. You might, of course, be free to change that when you come to the 3rd, if you think that this is worthwhile giving another 2 or 1. But it's important, as some students, I understand, have a hard time to see that when the person has opened up, he, she wants to keep on coming to you forever, as if you were more or less like a family member. They don't see the distinction between a family relationship and a professional relationship. And you are a professional as a faculty member. So you define the number of encounters that you will have in advance. You can modify that, or you can say, we will agree upon talking 3 times. Yes. We'll agree upon talking 3 times, and then we'll see. So you don't close it completely. Like that, you set limits. Now, if it's a kind of a certain personality type, you can say 3, but they won't have 3 in their mind. They will go on forever. But then you should be very clear about that. We speak 3 times, or 5 times, or whatever. You will have to be sensitive to the amount of problems that the person has, and also the nature of the person. Some students, as some grown-ups, have what we in psychiatry would call a personality disorder. A personality disorder is not characterized by symptoms. It is characterized by a behavior. Behavior that repeats itself over and over and over again, that you might know or might not know, in bad ways, creating problems, same kind of problems, again and again. Okay. Some of these are without barriers. We call them sometimes narcissistic personality disorders or borderline personality disorders. They are always hungry, not for food. Perhaps some are for food, but that's not my point. Some of them look like that. But they are always hungry for contact. So when you've given them contact, they want to eat you and consume you all the time. And therefore it's very important that you set a limit and that you say, Don't you remember we've made an agreement after 3 hours or after 3 sessions, we will finish. If it's after 5, you repeat the same thing. Don't you remember? And we'll have to stick to that. If you need to talk more, talk to somebody else. But I only want to talk to you. And then it becomes a very sort of exclusive relationship. And it's easy for you to be fooled by that. Because if it's only you in the whole world who can save me and understand me, it feels a little boosting for your own self-feeling that I'm so important to this person, that it's only me. But when it comes to counseling, it shouldn't be like that. Anyone who has a reasonable, good grasp or way of handling a counseling situation should be just as good as anybody else. So you don't have to talk to me. Anybody can help you. Well, and we stick to the agreement that we have made. We have 4, we have had 3, and we'll keep it like that. So if you have done it this way, you have a special relationship to this person because you open up, but nevertheless, you stick to the deal. If you give in for pressure, but only you, oh please, then I understand, but we stick to our deal. Oh, you're so cruel. Okay, that's one way of putting it, but we stick to our deal. So be rather firm, friendly but firm. If you get angry and firm, no, remember, don't you remember what we said 3 times? Now you've been nagging me so many times, I'm tired of this, I don't want it. Well, there are times when that might be useful, but generally it shouldn't be done that way. It should be done in a neutral way, just say, we did 3 times, but the problems are not over. But I cannot help you anymore, and we'll stick to our agreement. Something like that. So this is called in psychiatry and psychology setting limits. And to set limits to certain persons is absolutely necessary because they have no way themselves of setting limits. They just flow like the river over the edges of the sides of the river. They consume everything around them, and they can go on endlessly and involve you in every kind of big and small issue. Set the limits, and remember what I said. The point is not to foster dependency, but independency. And people can manage certain things on their own. They don't have to involve you all the time. Okay? So, this lecture that we have been going over now is a theoretical lecture. This can be also done in a workshop. Then we will go into interview exercises, training, so that you will have a hands-on experience on how to ask these different kinds of questions, how to deal with different issues, etc. But that is not what we're doing now. So now you have an overview, and hopefully this will be helpful to you and give you some perspectives on how to help students, how to fulfill the educational government of Tamil Nadu to provide counseling to some students and also to set limits for some students regarding counseling and the involvement that they would drag you into. And thereby you might be very helpful for some. Those that are not personality disorders, having the personality disorders, they might respect that we speak 5 times and they're grateful for the 5 times that you've spoken, and that's over. Those that come again and again and again and again, what do we do in psychotherapy as psychiatrists? We bring that into the relationship. Have you noticed that every time you see me, you approach me? Every time you ask for my time, you do that over and over again. Spend 5 minutes to sum up to yourself. What have you learned from this seminar? Big and small issues that gave you some insight, that meant something to you. And then we will have some feedback and discussion around that. So, interpersonal exchange now for 5 to 6 minutes, and then we will open the floor again. Okay? So now I give you a command. Speak to each other.
Community can translate. We welcome more interaction. Please, if you face any real problems with the students, you can ask for any advice or any kind of help from you. Real life situation, I mean. The problems we face with the students every day.
Excuse me, sir. I would like to know whether having close relationship with the students is a right thing or a wrong thing.
It depends on how close the relationship is. There are kinds of closeness to students that is definitely not to be recommended. If you are to go into a counseling session with a student, you will have a closer relationship with that person for a while. In those sessions, not outside of those sessions, but inside those sessions. And you have to define it so that the student might understand that this is something you do as a professional, as a teacher, not something you do as a family member, as a friend. It's not friendship. Counseling is not friendship. And on the way, of course, there is a particular relationship established by being so confident with each other. You don't share your things with the student. The student share things with you. And of course, you should keep that which is being confided to you to yourself. If you are to share it with somebody else, you should have the student's permission to do that. Can I talk to the principal about this? Can I share this with so-and-so, that teacher? Can I talk to that teacher about it? You should have the permission. You shouldn't act off your own bat. So confidentiality is a part of being in a professional relationship to the student. Also, you shouldn't use the information that you get. If you're teaching the person in class, you shouldn't sort of give a special hint to the student that comes from these relationships. It's to be as if non-existent, that part. So it's between you and him in that situation only. And if you don't do that, you will undermine your own respect, because the student will talk and you won't hear it, but he will say, he comes back to me and now he's pulling my leg because I told him so and so, etc. And that should not be there. Always act with respect and decency in these matters. That's very important. Okay. Any other reflections?
Thank you, sir. One more personal question.
Yes.
So now we are getting age, we are aging, and we have lot of forgetfulness. So how can we avoid that, sir?
I didn't get that.
Forgetfulness. We forget everything. So how can we, is there any remedy for that?
There are two
It's
kinds.
all natural, sir. It's not artificial, it's all becoming natural.
There are two kinds of forgetfulness in medicine. It's the forgetfulness that is related to dementia, and it's what is called benign forgetfulness. Benign means the not so bad forgetfulness. And the benign forgetfulness is growing with age. You forget your glasses, you forget this and you forget that. If you start to forget that you wear glasses, then it's dementia. If you forget where you put the glasses, it's benign forgetfulness. Forgetfulness is related to the brain's capacity to associate. So the number of brain cells is a tremendous high number, and every brain cell has connections to other brain cells. If you are learning something, there are associations. When you hear this word, you hear that concept, it connects to so and so. That's learning. Also, there's many other things too. So, when we grow older, the grey layer of the brain decreases in thickness because there is a certain decay in brain size. We are at the top when we're 25. After 25, it's always going downwards when it comes to the brain. The good thing that compensates for the brain capacity, the plasticity of the brain, is that we learn things. So we learn things, and that can compensate for this lack of quick connections to other parts of our brain. But after a certain time, the decline of brain cells is so high in some that even learning starts to evaporate. So, what can we do? Well, there has been a scientific study, more than one, that shows that if you meditate regularly, the decline of the grey layer of the brain is less. At the age of 50, those who have been meditating for many years had 7.5 years younger brains than those who had not been meditating. Also, if you are stressed, you age quicker. The more high stress you have, not good stress, but high stress you have, the quicker you age. And by aging more quickly, also this applies to the brain. So by having both the work of the attention that is there in meditation, as well as the de-stressing, are aiding you to remember. So that's on the structural level, the structural anatomical level. Meditation helps you. But on the practical level, you need to check yourself, control yourself, and repeat things more often. If you repeat things many times, then you remember it better. There is a Latin statement, it is not a good thing to bring to India, but nevertheless, it says, repetitio mater studiorum est, which means repetition is the mother of all learning. And the mother is the one that creates something from the womb. So, if you want to create new understanding, its repetition is necessary. Repeat, repeat, repeat. So you can do it in a rote learning way, or it can be that you're in encountering the topic again here and there, or you're working on it in a more associated manner, that you have so many connections to this concept in Shakespeare and that concept in psychology, and when you just hear it, there are so many associations that come. And the more you keep these doors open, the less you forget. But some element of forgetfulness is always there. If you're tired, you forget more. If you're stressed, you forget more. If you're going over the issues, preparing yourself before a lecture, before a class, you refresh the brain, it's there, more available to you. So there are practical ways and there are structural ways. The things we can do to fight gravity, that means falling to the ground, meaning aging. So that's the short answer to your question. It's a big question. Thank you. Okay? Any other questions related to today's topic? Yes?
Some students are attempting suicide due to their lung failure or their family problem.
Yes.
How to identify such people's under stress and what type of counseling they need?
Very good question, a very important question. Suicide among students is related to separation issues. When a child is born into the world, he is very close to mother. As he grows older, he can have a little more distance and have to be back. I don't know if you've seen the demonstration of the monkeys of Mr. Harlow, where the monkey has one little foot on the fur of the mother and moves out into the world, but keeps that sort of little track back, and gradually as he grows, he goes further and further into the world, and finally he can cut the psychological umbilical cord to the mother. Now, in this liberation issue, separation issue, some have mothers or fathers or family conditions that make them stay very close to their family, so that they are delayed in this freeing process of moving into the world. And some get so early cut off from their parents because their parents don't care, or they are so burdened with problems or alcohol or whatever, that they have to be independent very early. So some of those can capture and deal very well with them, but they still have a need inside for closeness that they haven't got in childhood. So if a person has had a good maturation process, a good separation process, she can manage very well to go to college. And it's great to come out of the world and meet new people, and it's all excited and full of that. But for some, it's terrible, because you're away from the source. And even though you have good friends and all that, it's not the same. So you feel terrible. And if there is a problem back home, it's even more sort of dragging you back to the home, and I have to be there and rescue the family. And this basic human orientation that we should rescue the family is basically a good thing. But it can sometimes be a very detrimental thing, very devastating thing. So sometimes we have to help people for not being drawn into the family, because then they go down the drain, as I was giving an example of that. So some students, and the same applies elsewhere, that it's coming to for instance, a university away from home is a terrible experience. What can we do? Well, counseling I've talked about. What else can we do? When students come as new students to a place, it's very, very important that they develop relationships to other friends and start bonding with boys and girls and sports and activities and teachers and everything, because that compensates for what the homes give them. And some of these who have the problems, they tend to not involve them so much into these new activities that are available. They don't so much establish new friendships and all that. So, the university where I am connected, when new students come in, we have 2 weeks where there is so much activity to get connected to student organizations, students. They are involved, all the students meet and are host for the younger students, thereby to give them a new place and in such a way help them. So the more we do that, the more we have group teachings and group situations where we help people to get closer to each other, the more likely is it that we will reduce those who have these impulse towards suicide. We will never be able to help absolutely 100%, but we will be able to reduce the number considerably by establishing collateral relationships that can replace the missing home and the worries that the home is causing to the students. So that's my answer. I'm on a round trip in this country, giving different workshops and lectures and seminars, different places. This year I'm going to university in Bhubaneswar. I'm going there every year. And this year we will have a workshop of some days duration about group dynamics. How to use group teaching as a way of integrating to improve learning and also to improve this establishment of relationships to other friends. One of these points is exactly what you raised, how to reduce the homesickness and the extreme cases of homesickness that involve suicide. So it's easier to be focused on what you are at the university for, that is to learn, to create a future for yourself, and to be a new person to your family. So many families in India now have a rural background, an agricultural background. They go to universities and they're the first in generations in their families who have a higher education. Parents cannot advise them, they don't know anything about what this involves. And they are desperately in need of role models, of having an idea about what this new life means. And so there is a social challenge involved in this state of India's development, with so many in the generation is moving up from being agricultural involved and culturally involved, and being able to establish a life as making a living out of higher education. So I emphasize that point. There is a major social challenge in addition to the educational challenge. Group dynamics is one important part. Counseling for a few is an important part. And whatever you can do. So a certain closeness to your students is okay, but always keep a certain barrier. Not too much of the old English style that you stay high and aloof. That's not how Indians tend to behave. It's in the British tradition, and the British had a lot of problems with that among themselves. So it's not a good ideal to copy. Too close, on the other hand, which is more like South America and also India, too close relationships, too much of that is also bad, because it creates, it doesn't create this understanding of formal roles and formal positions. So that's my response to you. Okay, any other question? We still have time.
We thank you, sir, for your subtle and detailed answer. We hope everyone present here is benefited individually by the program. Gratitude, as it were, is the moral memory of mankind. May I call upon Mrs. R. Lakshmi, Assistant Professor of English, to propose vote of thanks.
Respected President, Revered Secretary, today's chief guest Dr. R. A. Kolan, Mr. Jairaj, Mrs. Kalpana and Mr. Balakrishnan from Arkham, India, Deans, HODs and my dear colleagues, it is a great honor and privilege for me to stand before you to deliver the vote of thanks. Let me first of all start by giving glory to the Almighty God for making today's occasion a resounding success. I thank our college management for their constant support and encouragement. My special thanks goes to our president for giving me permission and encouraging me to do this FDP successfully. Thank you, sir. I also thank our principal, Dr. A.R. Ponperiyasamy, who has been a guiding force behind all our endeavors. Thank you, sir. I remain grateful to Professor Emeritus Dr. R. A. Kolan, psychiatrist, Norwegian University of Science and Technology, Norway, for his energetic and enthusiastic keynote address. When we contacted him for this program, he readily accepted our invitation. In his speech, he emphasized the importance of listening and responding, and what is more important is that to listen to the students and their body language. Counseling is not giving advice, it is just to listen to him. We have to listen to him, understand him by standing and listening from his own perspective. We should focus on his underlying messages, emotions, and help him to introspect himself. We can have at least 2 or 3, 4 sittings and counsel him and help him to overcome his problems. This is what we understand from your lectures, sir. Thank you, sir. I wish to record my sincere gratitude to Sri Jairaj, Southeast Asia Coordinator, Arkham, India, and Mrs. Kalpana Jairaj, General Secretary, Arkham. Thank you, ma'am and sir. I also thank Sri Balakrishnan, President, Tamil Nadu Chapter, Arkham, for his support. Thank you, sir. I am grateful to my department colleagues for their help and support. Thank you, sirs and ma'am. I take this opportunity to thank all the delegates who have made this function a grand success. Thank you, sirs and ma'am. I owe special gratitude to Mrs. Shanti, Mr. Jagadish, Mr. Vaiti, and the photographer and other non-teaching staff who have worked hard to ensure this occasion becomes a memorable success. Thank you. To conclude, let me once again reiterate my gratitude to all. Thank you.
Let us all stand up to end this occasion with national anthem.